Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aaron Shack Politics. Today, I want to talk about billionaire Elon Musk. Now, billionaire Elon Musk is tightening his control over broad swaths of the United States government at extraordinary speed, prompting growing alarm from Democrats and constitutional scholars. In the 2 weeks since U.S. President Donald Trump's inauguration, Musk, the head of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has upended the federal bureaucracy, prompting questions about the scope of his authority and warnings of constitutional crisis or even a coup. Acting without oversight of the U.S. Congress, Musk's lieutenants have brought the work of the U.S. aid to a halt, flagged millions of government employees for redundancy, gained access to classified material and sensitive details about millions of Americans, and taken control of the payment system that manages the flow of trillions of dollars of government spending. Musk, who was named as a special government employee by the White House on Monday, does not hold elected office and is not part of Trump's cabinet, whose members require confirmation by the U.S. Senate. According to a Justice Department summary, a special government employee is anyone who works or is expected to work for the government for 130 days or less in a 365-day period. Musk is not being paid. Special government employees, who are typically appointed on a temporary basis, are subject to most ethics rules that apply to ordinary government employees, although sometimes in a less restrictive way, according to a U.S. Department of Justice summary. Under the law, they are restricted from participating in matters that affect their financial interests and may be required to submit a financial disclosure report within 30 days of assuming a position. Now, as a special government employee, Musk is covered by a federal conflicts of interest statute that prohibits government employees from participating in matters that would affect their financial interests. That law can be enforced criminally or in the civil context, but it can only be enforced by the Justice Department. We are relying on the Justice Department for enforcement of the financial conflict of interest standards against Elon Musk and everyone else, and there is a reason to doubt that the Trump Justice Department will enforce any statutes, including criminal statutes, against a Trump ally, said Kathleen Clark, a Washington University law professor who specializes in government ethics. The designation also makes Musk subject to many government ethics standards, but not all of them. It remains to be seen if Musk's designation requires him to file a financial disclosure that will be made public. I've never seen anything like this, never in the history of the country. We always have the president, cabinet members, and the Treasury Secretary confirmed by the Senate, Richard Painter, who served as a chief White House ethics lawyer in the administration of former President George W. Bush. Cabinet members are installed by the president. They coordinate with the White House to implement policy. You can't just spend money appropriated by Congress. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he, Musk, had taken over as acting director of the United States Agency for International Development, which is USAID, which Musk had labeled a criminal organization on his website X. After takeover of the U.S. Treasury payment system on Monday, the only way to stop fraud and waste of taxpayer money is to follow the payment flows and pause suspicious transactions for review, obviously. Musk said in a post on his social media platform X, otherwise known as Twitter. Naturally, that causes those who have been aiding, abetting, and receiving fraudulent payments very upset. Too bad. Secretary Bessent's action granting DOGE-affiliated individuals full, continuous, and ongoing access to that information, people I would say they're 20 years old and 25 years old, very underage to be government employees here, to that information for an unspecified period of time means that retirees, taxpayers, federal employees, companies, and other individuals from all walks of life have no assurance that their information will receive the protection that the federal law affords, said the complaint, filed by the Alliance for Retired Americans, the American Federation of Government Employees, and the Service Employees International Union against the Treasury Department and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, said that the U.S. was witnessing the hostile takeover of the federal government by an unelected shadow government. The New York House of Representatives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, accused Musk of orchestrating a plutocratic coup. If you want the power, run for office and be chosen by the people, AOC said on X. Speaking to reporters at the Oval Office of the White House, Trump said that Musk can't and won't do anything without the approval of his administration. We will give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't, he reports in. Where we think there's a conflict or a problem, we won't let him go near it. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. The pinnacle of government corruption here. Michael J. Gerhardt, a professor who specializes in constitutional law at the University of North Carolina School of Law, said that Musk's influence over the government was undemocratic and possibly unconstitutional. This is perhaps the first time ever someone from outside the government has been so openly given free rein within. There is no mechanism for keeping Elon Musk in check. He has whatever power Trump lets him have. Given his position, the only bounds on his authority is Trump himself. Gerhardt said that while the presence of powers behind the throne was not new in U.S. politics, Musk's influence over the government showed an unprecedented disregard for the law. There's been corruption associated with nearly every presidency in American history, but Musk is brazenly defying and disregarding the laws that govern how government functions. And that's what we have to say on Elon Musk today. So, going beyond that, want to pull up some other stories here. Next, I want to once again relitigate this issue of how do tariffs work? And 60 Minutes will help give us some clarity here. So Trump is going to explain first, and then 60 Minutes will actually tell you what a tariff really is. Because once again, Trump and all his MAGA rats don't actually understand what a tariff is. They only understand what he says it is.
A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country. It's a tax on a country that's ripping us off and stealing our jobs.
But most any importer or economist will tell you the president is mistaken.
Yep.
Tariffs are not a tax on a foreign country. The tax is paid by the importer in the United States. For example, Walmart imports goods from China, and when those goods cross into the United States, Walmart pays the tariff. If Walmart decides to pass the cost to consumers, then you paid the tariff.
They absolutely will. They absolutely will, and that's actually how tariffs work. Every retailer knows this. If things cost more to import into the United States, then they're going to share those costs with the customer because everyone's got to make a profit. We can't sell things at a loss unless we're moving a lot of volume that can make up for that loss. And most people aren't moving that type of volume. So yeah, tariffs, not good for anyone. Okay? So, beyond that, it's not DEI, folks. Okay? This is how Trump has gutted the air safety before the deadly crash. So, number one, Trump has fired the head of the TSA, David Pekoske, who was originally appointed by Trump, was abruptly fired from his post at the TSA. So TSA has no leader. Federal hiring freeze didn't help with this, okay? So, number one, Trump fired the head of the TSA, David Pekoske, so the TSA has no leader, instituted a federal hiring freeze on federal employees. So some say this halted the hiring of air traffic controllers, and the FAA was already short-staffed. And of course, FAA employees are saying that the agency lacks sufficient air traffic controllers and that buyouts and other attacks on federal employees, like buying them out, getting them to quit their job for some sort of payoff, is not helping. Trumpers blaming DEI or Biden doesn't help either because that's not true. Also, Trump gutted the Aviation Safety Panel. So the Aviation Safety Advisory Committee examines safety issues at airlines and airports. It currently exists in name alone with no members to do the work. Then the FAA chief was forced out because Elon Musk pressured the former FAA administrator to quit after the agency issued fines to SpaceX. So once again, conflict of interest here. The FAA regulates civil aviation in the U.S., and Trump appointed an FAA chief following the deadly crash. And then, of course, Elon Musk was pressuring said FAA chief right here, Mike Whitaker, on his platform Twitter, also called X. So there's more proof right there. Now, if President Biden had forced out the FAA chief under pressure from his top advisor and his corrupt motives, the next week there was a real plane crash that killed more than 60 people, Republicans would be howling that it was an impeachable offense. But look where we're at now. Hardly anyone is making any noise about this, it seems. Let's see. Last thing I have regarding Trump this week. So, this week in democracy, let's take a look at the chaos, the crashes, the firings, the funding freezes, everything. So first, January 25th, Saturday, Stuart Rhodes, far-right leader of the Oath Keepers, whose prison sentence for seditious conspiracy, literally a traitor, was commuted in week 1, attended a Trump rally in Las Vegas. The Associated Press reported that the White House is sending teams to government agencies to screen job applicants to test their loyalty to Trump and enthusiasm for his agenda. We've also heard that people in government and federal offices are having to sign loyalty pledges. Now that sounds very Hitler-esque. Let's see. So moving on from there, Trump said he wants to clean out the Gaza Strip. We remember that. And move Palestinians to Egypt and Jordan, which would be an act of ethnic cleansing. We've already discussed that quite a bit on the channel. He also directed the U.S. military to lift a hold on delivery of the 2,000-pound bombs to Israel, which we talked about. We talked about how inaccurate those bombs are and how they cause massive collateral damage. But Trump is happy to once again lift that hold and let Israel continue the collateral damage without any consequences. That was one of the only actions the Biden administration took to limit Israeli government's mass killing of Palestinians in Gaza. So then, January 26th, the Justice Department removed the database that listed the criminal charges and convictions of the newly pardoned January 6th insurrectionists. So now there's like no evidence that any of those convictions happened. Trump pressured the Colombian government into accepting military planes carrying deported migrants by threatening 25% punitive tariffs on all goods coming to the U.S. from the Latin American country. Now, we know what tariffs are and what they do, so it's not going to affect Colombia. It's going to affect how much we pay when Colombia sends us their coffee and we buy it and it gets sold in our stores here. They pay those costs at customs, okay? So, Trump also called for a travel ban and immediate visa revocations of Colombian government officials, as well as allies and supporters. Trump officials issued a new quota for the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, to arrest at least 1,200 to 1,500 people a day, up from a few hundred a day. Then Monday, January 27th, a lot of things happened Monday. Trump floated the idea of the U.S. paying a small fee to foreign countries to incarcerate Americans who are repeat criminal offenders. The White House Office of Management and Budget issued a memo pausing all federal grants and loans, including trillions in government spending and public programs that millions of Americans rely on. The Trump administration fired more than a dozen DOJ lawyers involved in 2 criminal cases against the president. So once again, using his political office to seek vengeance. Trump signed an executive order banning transgender individuals from enlisting and serving in the military. He signed another executive order ending diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in the military. Republican attorneys general from 19 states wrote a letter to Costco CEO Ron Vacris that called for private business to end its DEI policies. The deputy director for global health at the Center of Disease Control and Prevention ordered CDC staff to stop communicating with the World Health Organization, or the WHO. Trump's top DOJ prosecutor for Washington, D.C., announced he was launching a special project to investigate the office's handling of criminal cases of January 6 defendants. In an interview on MSNBC, Mike Warr, who was one of the inspector generals fired by Trump, called the president a threat to democracy and to independent oversight. The inspector general at the Department of Agriculture was physically escorted out of her office after refusing to comply with her firing. I can't really blame her. Tuesday, January 28th. Defense Intelligence Agency issued a memo suspending the observance of several holidays. Now, this is crazy. Martin Luther King Day, Holocaust Day, Juneteenth, Pride, as first reported by Ken Klippenstein. I don't think we should stop celebrating those. I think we should celebrate them anyway, and in spite of Trump and his group of, just racist and sexist people. Mae Musk, the mother of Elon Musk, asked her son in a post on X to sue Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell over comments made during a panel discussion on CNN about the Musk salute that was welcomed by Nazis. Well, it was a Nazi salute, and Nazis would know. So if they're very happy about it, I think you did a Nazi salute. Just before CNN anchor Jim Acosta announced he was departing the network, Trump attacked the journalist on Truth Social, calling him a major sleazebag and one of the worst and most dishonest reporters in journalistic history. Jim Acosta now has his own show on Substack. He does a live show there. He has a feed that you can follow and read all his stuff. Really good stuff. Natalie Winters, a co-host on Steve Bannon's podcast, was given access to the White House briefing room. Oklahoma State Board of Education voted to approve a proposal that would require families to prove their immigration or citizenship status in order to enroll their children in school. Yikes. A federal judge temporarily blocked part of the federal funding freeze, or the FFF, announced by the Trump administration. The Trump administration has incentivized federal workers to resign by offering so-called buyouts in a move that may violate federal law. Trump also signed an executive order seeking to restrict gender-affirming care for children and teenagers under the age of 19. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, dressed in body armor, accompanied ICE to conduct made-for-TV dawn raids on migrants in New York City. So more posturing. The Trump administration revoked an extension of deportation protections for more than 600,000 Venezuelans in the United States. Guys, we're only to Wednesday, January 29th. Trump administration conveniently closed the case against the president's former co-defendants in the classified documents investigation. So very convenient that he's able to close cases on himself and his buddies. Trump signed an executive order directing the Pentagon DHS to prepare a migrant detention facility, or a concentration camp, at Guantanamo Bay for up to 30,000 people. Trump signed the Laken-Riley Act into law, giving ICE the ability to detain and deport undocumented immigrants arrested for minor charges like shoplifting, even if they have not been convicted of a crime. So just alleged crimes, I guess. Trump signed an executive order that threatens to cut federal funding from schools that teach about critical race theory or gender ideology. Trump signed an executive order that seeks to deport international students who participated in pro-Palestinian campus protests. So once again, that's against the freedom of speech and freedom of religion, all of everything the First Amendment is all about. Trump administration rescinded the memo freezing federal funding, or FFF, after it caused widespread chaos and provoked multiple legal challenges. So yeah, I don't know if that actually makes you immune to the federal or the legal charges that come about from canceling the federal funding freeze. FCC Chair Brendan Carr opened an investigation of NPR and PBS to determine whether the organizations have been violating federal law by airing commercials. The FCC also sent a request to CBS News for the unedited transcript of its 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. Very odd. The Department of Veterans Affairs fired the directors of the Center for Women Veterans and the Center for Minority Veterans. There you go. Another strike against women and minorities. A lawsuit was filed against the Trump administration, arguing the president illegally exceeded his authority in an effort to politicize the civil service. More than 1,100 employees at the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, received emails that said they were now on probationary status and could be fired immediately. Thursday, January 30th, the New York Times reported that CBS parent company Paramount is in talks to settle a $10 billion lawsuit filed by Trump before the 2024 election, accusing CBS of deceptively editing a 60 Minutes interview with Vice President Kamala Harris, an allegation the network denies. Trump's unqualified nominee for FBI Director Kash Patel, Kash with a K, refused to say that Trump lost the 2020 election in a Senate confirmation hearing. Yikes. Patel also said he doesn't know any members of the so-called January 6th choir, despite being a producer on the 2023 song Justice for All. Trump signed an executive action blaming Biden and DEI for flight dangers one day after a fatal plane crash in D.C. killed 67 people. Pro-Trump billionaire Nicole Shanahan, former vice presidential candidate for RFK and ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin, threatened to fund primary challengers to senators who don't vote to confirm RFK Jr. as health secretary, which he later was confirmed of. At least 6 senior FBI leaders were ordered to retire, resign, or be fired by Monday. Now, Friday, January 31st, DOJ fired dozens of prosecutors who handled criminal cases stemming from January 6th insurrection. David A. Lebrick, highest-ranking officer, career official at the Treasury Department, announced his retirement after a rift with allies of Elon Musk over granting them access to a sensitive government payment system. Musk aides in charge of running the U.S. government human resources agency also reportedly locked career civil servants out of computer systems containing the personal data of millions of federal employees. We have no visibility into what they are doing with the computer and data systems, one of the officials affected told Reuters. The AP, Associated Press, reported that the Trump administration is moving to fire FBI agents involved in investigations related to the president. So, repercussions. Anyone that investigated Trump, immediately consequences are being met. This is not a just system. Seeking vengeance on your enemies or on people that are meant to investigate you in an impartial way, just doing their jobs. That's what investigators do. They're not there to be your friend. They're not there to necessarily be your enemy, but they are there to seek truth and justice. And, if you're guilty of the crime, you will do the time. A judge granted a temporary restraining order in the federal funding pause case against the Trump administration. The Pentagon informed its resident press corps that NBC, NPR, and the New York Times and Politico would have to rotate out of the building in order to give seats to the New York Post, Breitbart, OANN, or One America News Network, and the Huffington Post. 3 of those 4 outlets are right-wing and pro-Trump. One of them, OANN, is more of a conspiracy site than a news site. And I would say that is absolutely true. So once again, folks, I'd like you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, and stay tuned for more videos, live streams, and shorts from Aaron Shack Politics. You can also find us on Twitter, or X as Elon likes to call it, Blue Sky, and TikTok. So give us a follow on all those places. Check out the videos. Share them with your friends, family, and people that need to be informed of what's going on. So until then, take care, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one.